generated but otherwise wasted beaming off into space or down into the ground instead get refracted out horizontally, magnifying the light by about 1,600 times and making the light visible from about 24 miles away under clear nighttime conditions. But let's say you're out on a boat 20 miles from here on a clear night, and you look back in this direction. What would you see? What would this lighthouse look like from 20 miles away?
A little speck, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
tiny little speck of light, not too dissimilar in appearance from what stars look like, or distant lights which might be on another ship. And how would you tell all of these lights you see around the horizon apart? How would you know that it's the Point Reyes Lighthouse and not mistake it for the Farallon Islands lighthouse 20 miles to the south, or just mistake it for a low-lying star?
We both know we were reading. Yeah, we read it.
So
it's the signal frequency, like what pattern it has.
It's like its own little lighthouse SOS language.
Not quite
it's
as
like a
complex
fingerprint
as SOS, but it's called a signature, a flash rate, either, say, once every 5 seconds here at Point Reyes, or once every 15 seconds down at the Farallon Islands, or at the Golden Gate at Point Bonita Lighthouse. That light's on for about 3 seconds, then it goes off for a second, comes back on for another 3. And so each lighthouse along a stretch of coastline will have its unique signature. Well, today with the electric lights, it's not too challenging to program them to flash at a given rate. But back in 1870, when this tower was built, they wouldn't have had that technology. They would have been using a lard oil lamp, a glorified candle. And how does one get a candle to flash once every 5 seconds?
You
Sort
have to
of blowing it out and
manually
reigniting
do it. Right, it's a manual
Pass your
process.
hand in front of the light, or as was done back in the 1820s when these were first introduced, they would have shields inside of the lenses spinning around the light, and whenever the shield came between you and the light would appear to go off for, say, a second, then the light would be revealed for 3 seconds, then the shield comes back and obscures the light again. That's what was done down at Point Bonita Light when it was constructed in the 1850s. And at that time, the lenses were composed of a series of circular rings stacked one on top of another. Would look more like this, except much larger.
Okay.
But from any direction
that's neat.
around the horizon, you'd be able to see the light unless that shield was blocking
So that
the
was
view.
sitting on top of the oil lamp? Or what, that little piece?
So, no, that's a miniature.
Oh, it's a mini one. Okay, just for
holiday
demonstration
tree.
purposes.
Yeah,
Okay.
ornament.
I was
It's
like,
a holiday tree.
dang, that was a strong oil from that whale.
But no, you'd have something shaped like
Shaped
that,
like
except
that.
9
Huge.
feet tall, 6
Yeah,
feet wide.
the
or so.
Fresnel. Okay,
Right.
gotcha.
Now, by the 1860s, they had started dividing up these lenses into multiple columns of prisms, similar to this. And if you look up at the curtain, you can see the pattern that results as you have numerous beams radiating out of here, like spokes from the hub of a wheel. And if you're in line with one of those beams of light, the light will appear to be on. If you're in between the beams, the light would appear to be off. And then by spinning the entire 3-ton lens around, those beams start sweeping around the horizon, and whenever a beam passes by you, the light briefly appears to flash, and then 5 seconds later, another beam comes by, and so on.
Wow, 3 tons?
Yes, all that making
With
sense?
all that glass, right?
Actually, it's crystal,
or
not
crystal.
glass.
Okay, all right.
So, everyone get that concept of how that would work?
Yeah.
Any of you good with multiplication? Want a quick math challenge?
We can try. Try it.
Okay, if there are 24 beams radiating out of here, and you want them spaced 5 seconds apart, how long will it take the lens to make one rotation?
24 of them 5 seconds apart.
Yes.
5?
2 minutes?
You divide by 5? Oh,
No,
2 minutes?
I told you it's a multiplication
Oh,
problem,
well,
so-
sorry. Well, division's a form of multiplication, too. I didn't record you, don't worry. She's, like, afraid of being recorded.
Yeah, 120 seconds.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah.
once every 2 minutes.
Okay.
And how would they maintain that precise timing and not allow the lens to start spinning faster, say once every minute, or slow down to once every 3 minutes, or just spin erratically? How would they control the timing to keep it at once every 2 minutes? Now,
Have it tied to a clock,
Yeah.
like some kind of clock
It's
mechanism, like you're
a
hooking up
clockwork
here.
mechanism down
Yeah,
here.
okay.
And that would regulate the rate at which the lens spins, but how would they have powered this clockwork mechanism back before we started plugging clocks into electric outlets?
Coal.
Well, steam.
No?
Steam, generator, some kind of
I'm
generator.
unfamiliar with any clocks powered by coal or steam or horse.
Oh, just winding
You'd
it,
have
just
to
manually.
Wind it manually. And so with old clocks of old, would one have to keep winding it as long as they wanted the hands to keep spinning on the face of the dial, or would they be able to take a break?
Regulator or something?
Well,
Like a
there is a
pendulum?
regulator. That's more or less what this whole thing is, and the pendulum would be a common regulator. But what would that pendulum be regulating aside from how fast this spins? The pendulum is actually counteracting some force.
Well, the weight of the weights that are going
Yeah,
down.
there's
There's
a
got to be a
counterweight over
weight, just
here.
like on a grandfather
Right.
clock. Yeah. a
So as
counterweight.
one
Okay.
winds this
There we
up,
go.
that weight would be lifted up off the ground.
Okay.
And if not for the pendulum, it would drop within a few seconds.
Right.
Rather counterproductive to spend several minutes and then only get a couple minutes of drop, or a few seconds of drop. So a pendulum, with each tick and tock back and forth, would slowly release a bit more cable, allowing that weight to descend, and the pull of the gravity would drive the spinning of the lens. But a pendulum won't work for this sort of application because we want this lens to be spinning continuously and not starting and stopping and starting and stopping with each tick and tock of the pendulum. So instead, they did use a bit of centrifugal force and air resistance harnessed through this governor up in this upper part of this chamber to counteract gravity's pull. And as a result, it'll take about 2 hours and 20 minutes for that weight to descend, at which time someone would come in, wind it for a few minutes, but then they get the next couple hours off while gravity does all the work. Any of you ever had a job that easy?
Mm-hmm.
Was it that simple to be a lighthouse keeper?
No.
What else might lighthouse keepers need to do to keep this operation going?
Clean the windows.
Okay, clean the exterior windows as well as the exterior of the tower. This tower is made out of cast iron. Is that a good building material here?
No.
Why not?
Rust.
It's going to rust really fast unless the cast iron's kept well painted and they rinse the salt spray off of it regularly. And then inside, they need to be cleaning every one of those 1,032 prisms twice a week to remove the soot that had been generated by the lard oil lamp. They tried to vent the smoke and the soot up through the chimney, but not all of it got out that way. There'd be polishing of the brass to remove dust and dirt, which would add to the friction and wear and tear of the gears. And then they also spent an awful lot of time with this material. Anyone know what this rock is?
Let me see.
It's coal, a very dirty power source which was in common use 140 years ago, unfortunately burned now more than ever, but by burning that rock, you can generate some heat and boil some water, vent the steam through some pistons or turbines to harness that energy, but they didn't bother with that here. They would be hauling 60 to 80 tons of coal a year out here, only to burn it all and vent all of the steam they generated through a whistle. Why?
Foghorn.
That was the original foghorn or fog signal, located another 100 feet further down the cliff. Whenever it was foggy, which is a quarter to a third of the time around here, someone would need to be down there shoveling 140 pounds of coal into the boiler every hour. Now, with all this work, do you think it was all left to one lonely lighthouse keeper, as is so frequently portrayed in the movies? How many people do you think were stationed out here? Not quite that many.
4.
4. Up until the 40-hour work week clause went into effect, then it increased to 5. But initially 4, a chief lighthouse keeper and 3 assistants. The second and third assistants were more often than not bachelors, and for some reason they never wanted to stay here much more than a year, but there were a number of individuals who would stick around year after year. Many raised families, and Paulus Nielsen holds the record for longevity here at Point Reyes. He arrived in 1897, and he probably would have stuck around longer, but he contracted pneumonia, can't imagine why, and passed away in 1921 after nearly 24 years of service.
Wow.
Any of you think you can handle much more than 24 hours of the wind and cold and fog that dominate this location? Fortunately for the lighthouse keepers and their successors, technology didn't just stagnate in the 1800s with coal and lard oil, but things got cleaner and more efficient over the years as new technology was introduced and adopted. A major breakthrough occurred in 1939 during the Great Depression, when using federal funding through the Rural Electrification Act, we the people agreed to do something that PG&E was unwilling to do. Fund the stringing of power lines all the way out to remote locations such as here, so that maybe the Coast Guard could electrify the light. And a bit later, the Coast Guard automated the fog signal. And they ultimately automated themselves out of the job here in 1975 when the current automated station was completed. After 105 years of use, this tower was then decommissioned and shortly thereafter transferred to the National Park Service for preservation. And today this is the only lighthouse, to the best of our knowledge, that remains from this period in the U.S. that still has the original first-order Fresnel lens, still connected to the original operable clockwork mechanism in the original tower and location. So it is a very unique artifact. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
How much did it cost to build originally? Was there some estimate of the cost?
Close to $100,000 was appropriated for this project over the course of 18 years, but much of that funding probably lapsed, and we don't have an exact figure because it was a long, convoluted story to just get this built.
Right, right.
So you refer to the Point Bonita Lighthouse a lot. Is that the one that's...
So as you're going across the Golden Gate Bridge heading into San Francisco, if you look off to the right on the north side of the Golden Gate, that's the Point Bonita Lighthouse.